Fortunately, to acquire rationality is not complicated. It simply requires knowing and working through a three-step process. First, we must become aware of what we shall call low-grade irrationality. This is a function of continued moods and feelings that we experience in life below the level of consciousness. When we plan or make decisions, we are not aware of how deep these moods and feelings skew the thinking process. They create in our thinking pronounced biases that are so deeply ingrained in us that we see evidence of them in all cultures and all periods of history. These biases, by distorting reality, lead to the mistakes and ineffective decisions that flag our lives. Being aware of them, we can begin to counterbalance their effects. Second, we must understand the nature of what we shall call high-grade irrationality. This occurs when our emotions become inflamed, generally because of sudden pressures. As we think about our anger, excitement, resentment, or suspicion, it intensifies into a reactive state. Everything we see or hear is interpreted through the lens of this emotion. We become more sensitive and more prone to other emotional reactions, and patience and resentment can bleed into anger and deep distrust. These reactive states are what lead people to violence, to many obsessions, to control of uncontrollable greed, or to desire to control another person. This form of irrationality is the source of more acute problems, crises, conflicts, and disastrous decisions. Understanding how this type of irrationality operates can allow us to recognize the reactive state as it is happening and pull back before we do something we regret. Third, we need to enact certain strategies and exercises that will strengthen the thinking power of the brain and give it more power in the eternal struggle with our emotions. Emotions are continually affecting our thought processes and decisions below the level of our awareness, and the most common emotion of them all is the desire for pleasure and avoidance of pain. Our thoughts almost inevitably revolve around this desire. We simply recoil from entertaining ideas that are unpleasant or painful to us. We imagine we are looking for the truth or being realistic, when in fact we are holding on to ideas that bring a release of tension and soothe our egos, make us feel superior. This applies a principle in thinking is a source of all our mental biases. If you believe that you are somehow immune to any of the following biases, is simply an example of pleasure principle in action. I don't want to read this book. I don't feel it. I don't know why I really wanted to read before it, but now I don't want to read. So I'm going to read the book called Permission to Feel. I need to put this book. Okay. This is where our emotional lives extend, even beyond the personal. Creativity is the lifeblood of our culture and our economy. In a poll, 1,500 corporate CEOs said that unemployed creativity was the single best indicator of the future success. Without innovation, societies stagnate and die. Creativity also includes two other factors, performance and effectiveness. Creativity can exist only in the abstract, in our minds and nowhere else. That's just having a rich imagination. The creative process needs to be followed by concrete action. Once we devise any new strategies, we must have the confidence to put them to use. Effective performance is as much part of a creativity as initial animating idea. But whether we take advantage of all the possibilities in even time is a different matter. Safe to say, at times, we all feel less creative than we'd like to be. That's because our creativity is so closely tied to our emotional state, even though the connection may not be so obvious. Again and again, in working with educators, families, and children, we wind up discussing the unique problems of stress and frustration, the despair of the feeling as though we lack the power to make meaningful changes for the better. It's hard to imagine a worse feeling. Okay, for a child, it can be devastating. Children have little control of their lives under the best conditions. We all go through tough times, but most of us believe that if we preserve, we can find solutions. That's another form of creativity, everyday creativity, the ability to keep discovering new answers when the other ones no longer work. We must be like for the children and adults who can't hope even for that. We see measure creativity defined as ability to respond to situations in ways that are novel and original. Children have become less emotionally expressive, less energetic, less talkative, and verbally expressive, less humorous, less imaginative, less conventional, less likely and passionate, less perceptive, less apt to connect to similar irrelevant things, less synthesizing, and less likely to see things from a different angle. Who and what could we blame except parents and education system that often squash original thinking and penalize students for using their imagination? When discussing creative thinking, psychologists often use the terms convergent and divergent thinking. The former operates when searching for only one correct solution to a problem or only one proper answer to a question, and the try to arrive at it by moving straight ahead linear thinking. The divergent approach moves in all directions. It assumes there are many possible solutions and it tries to consider each, especially the most creative, unusual ones. The impulse to create seems to come naturally to the human brain. However, we must be encouraged to express it. In schools, it's hard to be creative when convergent thinking, the ability to remember facts and perform well on a standardized test, is most highly rewarded. To engage children and prepare them for the workforce, they must be given more opportunities and encouragement to be creative. For that to happen, schools need to restructure learning so that it promotes unconventional thinking and fresh approaches to problem solving and access content areas, not just in the arts. Okay. Research shows that divergent thinking results in feelings of joy, pride, and satisfaction. Ooh. A study across the 5 countries with different languages found that working on creative tasks leads to increased positive emotions and autonomy. Another study showed that creative behavior on a given day leads to more positive emotions and a sense of flourishing the next day. As with so much about our emotional lives, there's a feedback loop at work. Feeling good encourages us to act creatively, which makes us feel even better. But happiness is not the single key to creative. In fact, modest levels of stress have been found in some cases to significantly improve creativity performance compared to no stress at all. Even emotions such as anger and distress can serve as motivation for creative thinking and enhance creativity. Compared with a control group, the sympathy participants showed the greater originality in thinking. Oh, okay. One explanation is that sympathy is a reaction to other people's suffering and therefore produces and trains motivation to generate solutions that reduce their distress. Okay, I see. Creativity is especially important in face of adversity. When we're disappointed because the plan A didn't work out, when we tried hard and still receive negative feedback, when someone stands in the way of progress or even tries to prevent it, we first have to manage and hurt our anger, not deny it, but accept it, and then put it to good use as a motivational force. That's where our creativity can come to our rescue and allow us to achieve our goal and despite the obstacle. Okay, now do you see how complex the simple question, how do you feel, really can be? The emotional roller coaster is no small matter. Okay, that's true. That emotional roller coaster. That emotional roller coaster is no small matter. It has an enormous influence on our most important areas of our lives. Religious leaders, poets, and playwrights have known this for centuries. Over the past few decades, the scientists have begun to catch up. Now we know better than the ancients, and also ancients, and the degree to which emotions imply everything else. This is the first step toward accepting who we truly are. Well, then it's next step. How are you feeling right now? Can you be sure? That may seem like a ridiculous question. Of course, we all know exactly what we are feeling. It may be the only thing about which we can be certain. So if it's in all so completely, effortlessly self-evident, okay, why would need a sense of emotion and emotional intelligence? We speak of emotion skills, but does that mean there is just something to be learned or not? Indeed, it does. It's a safe bet that no one in the history of the human race has ever known precisely what she or he is feeling in all its complexity and contradictions and chaos at all times. Our numerous are fighting hundreds of times a second, and lots of what goes on up. There is a pure, roiling emotion. You could be brilliant with an IQ that Einstein would envy, but if you're unable to recognize your emotions and see how they're affecting your behavior, all the cognitive power won't do you as much good as you might imagine. A gifted child who doesn't have the permission to feel, along with the vocabulary to express and those feelings and the ability to understand them, want to be able to manage complicated emotions around friendships and academics, limiting his or her potential. Our most important mental functions have an emotional aspect, even if they seem to be purely in the realm of cognition, and those factors determining significant real-life outcomes, our relationships or performance, our decision-making, even our physical health. Our feelings encourage us to treat the people we care about with love and respect, or disregard their needs and wishes. Help us focus on our thinking and distract us, fill us with enthusiasm and energy articulate our will, open us up to the outside world and pull us up from it. Feelings motivate us to do things that improve our lives and those of the people around us, but they can also adversely influence our actions without us even realizing it. In fact, that's when you are most vulnerable to emotions effect, when you fail to detect it. When you are making a decision, there are two kinds of emotions, integral and incidental. Integral emotions are directly caused by the action at hand. We are fearful. We're climbing a tricky mountain pass, We're joyful as we are falling in love. All completely understandable and are connected to the moment. Incidental emotions have nothing to do with what's going on. As we described earlier, we had an argument with our kids, and our lingering feelings and frustration and anger influencing how we try to work and interact with our colleagues at the office. These are the emotions that infiltrated our thinking without us being aware. Okay, incidental. We learn the skills to use our emotions wisely, not suppress them or ignore them. Suppress or ignore, okay. In fact, just the opposite. We will no longer be controlled by feelings we may not even perceive. Anxiety is a signal that we feel something important is beyond our control. Fear or uneasiness can make us risk adverse. They can be a positive thing. It may steer us away from taking foolish chances. But if we are too risky at first or give up in the face of obstacles too easily, we'll never try anything, thereby guaranteeing failure. That's why we need to understand our emotions, be aware of how they influence our actions, and have a strategy to regulate them. Becoming an emotion scientist will help us to recognize the physical symptoms that sometimes accompany strong feelings. Suddenly I'm feverish and my heart is racing, or I'm feeling a queasy ache in my stomach. All real sensations and sometimes emotional rather than physiological, sometimes not. When these symptoms present themselves, we don't always pause to ask, is there an emotion behind this, and what can I do about it? Or am I just dehydrated or hungry or tired and I need to drink or eat something or I just go to bed? An emotion scientist have the ability to pause even at the most stressful moments and ask, what am I reacting to? What can I learn to identify and understand all our feelings, integral and incidental, and then respond in helpful, proportionate ways once we acquire emotion skills. But what exactly are they? In it, they asserted that the majority of applied tasks are influenced by emotion. We all have emotion skills, the author wrote, but to varying degrees. The ability to perceive accurately, appraise an emotion, express emotion. The ability to access and or generate feelings. Okay. Generate feelings when we facilitate thought. The ability to understand emotion and emotional knowledge, and the ability to regulate emotion to promote emotional and intellectual growth. That's a fine textbook definition. We should all possess those skills, but it's hard to infer what emotional intelligence looks like in practice from that definition alone. There are individual differences in how we process information of every time. Some of us are naturally better at math than others, while some of us excel at language-based tasks. But we all learn and improve in those areas. Similarly, some of us are more fluent and intuitive than others when it comes to emotional matters. But we can all learn and improve here too. I often ask people to describe an emotionally intelligent person. Trait yourself now. What are the skills? Some people say empathy, which allows us to relate to what others are feeling. Empathy is about having a shared emotional experiences. Empathy can help you connect with someone, but it won't necessarily help you to support a person in managing his or her difficult emotion or stop you from getting lost in someone else's shoes. That's where emotional skill come into play. Neither is why we commonly think of it as emotional stability. We tend to view a calm, poised, demeanor as a sign of superior emotional wisdom. It denotes inner peace and harmony. People who are serene and together may possess great emotion skills, but the same may be true of those who are conspiracy and neurotic. In fact, sometimes out of pure necessity, people who are high in neuroticism also demonstrate great emotion skills. They need them in order to regulate their own tumultuous inner lives. Tumultuous inner lives, but neither stability nor neuroticism equals emotional intelligence. Grit, defined as perseverance and a passion for long-term goals. Resilience is also mentioned as an emotional skill. According to the American Psychological Association, it is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant source of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems in the workplace, and financial stressors. Has revealed biological markers that differentiate how sensitive children, referred to as orchids, respond to environmental changes and compare with how resilient children, who they call dandelions, react. Dandelion children may thrive in most any condition, whereas orchid children tend to be more fearful and overwhelmed in uncertain social situations. Whether an orchid or dandelion child is better or worse likely has to do with how families, teachers, and peers support their emotional development. If neglected, orchid children promptly wither, but if they are raised in supportive conditions, they not only survive but flourish compared with the dandelion children. Emotional skills are likely to antecedent to building resilience. Finally, emotion skills are not constellation of traits such as confidence or charisma or popularity. It doesn't mean having a good personality, whether that is. It isn't kindness and warmth and high self-esteem. It isn't optimism. Those may all be desirable qualities that make us appealing to the rest of the world. We may aspire any or all of, but they are not emotion skills. So what are they? First, emotion skills must be acquired. Nobody is born with them all in place and ready to work. Emotion skills amplify our strengths and help us through challenges. If I'm an extrovert and I need to shine, then I must learn to be in my environment so I can see when I overwhelm others and tone myself down. If I'm an introvert, my tendency to be quiet and subdued may underwhelm people at home, school, or workplace. So I will need to amp myself up at the times so the world can see my enthusiasm. I asked my host what the colors meant. She said that green indicated I am comfortable with receiving a hug. Yellow means ask before hugging, and the red proclaimed stay away. I've done, which demonstrated the small correlation between emotional intelligence and IQ. A senior professor made a little effort to hide this skepticism, as if the two colors couldn't coexist within one person. There were so many prejudices, weaknesses, and contradictions included into our statement. It restores balance to our thought processes. It prevents emotions from having undue influence over our actions. And it helps us realize that we might be feeling a certain way for a reason. They are known by the acronym RULER. The first skill, recognizing the occurrence of emotion by noticing a change in one's own thoughts, energy, or body, or in someone else's facial expression, body language, or voice. That's the first clue that something important is happening. The second skill, understanding, which means that we know the cause of emotions and see how they influence our thoughts and decisions. This will help us make better predictions about our own and others' behavior. The third skill, labeling, which refers to make connections in between the emotional experience and the precise terms to describe it. People with a more mature feeling vocabulary can differentiate among related emotions such as pleased, happy, elated, and aesthetic. Not aesthetic. Aesthetic. Labeling emotions and accurately increasing self-awareness and help us to communicate emotions effectively. Reducing means understanding social interactions. The fourth skill, expression, which means knowing how and when to display our emotions, depending on the setting, the people we are with, and the larger context. People who are skilled in this area understand the unspoken rules for emotional expression, also called the display rules, often direct the best way to express what they feel and modify their behaviors accordingly. The fifth skill, regulating, which involves monitoring, tempering, and modifying emotional reactions in helpful ways in order to reach personal and professional goals. This doesn't mean ignoring convenient emotions, rather, it's learning to accept and deal with them. People with this skill employ strategies to manage their own emotions and help others with theirs. In the ruler framework, the first three skills, recognizing, understanding, and labeling, help us to accurately identify and decode what we and others are feeling. And the two remaining skills, expressing and regulating, tell us how we can manage those emotions and to achieve desired outcomes. Our ultimate goals, your intelligence quotient, IQ. Daily life requires emotional skill at every turn. You provide a little reliable feedback on how well we are doing, or if we are improving. We know for a fact that no matter how small you are, your emotions will have an influence, positive or negative, on your rational thought processes. That's important. We already explained the 5 key emotion skills, so let's try an experiment. Receive a test and you can take and measure your own. You will have to score yourself from 1 and very unskilled to 5 very skilled. On 5 semester near sum up. When it takes me to be emotion scientist, I'm able to accurately recognize my own and others' emotions. I'm aware of causes and consequences of my own and others' feelings. I have a refined emotional vocabulary. I'm skilled at expressing the full range of emotions. I'm skilled at managing my own emotions. How confident are you in the significance of your score? Let's admit the vital flaw in this test. None of us is completely unbiased when it comes to estimating on our mental skills, emotional and otherwise. So clearly we are inclined to overstate our emotion skills. Perhaps unsurprising, male student estimates of their scores were significantly higher than those of the women, despite the fact that the men who worse than the women when it took a performance-based test, like the ones we just took. They are mostly superficial and misleading, often measuring personality traits rather than emotion skills, and they reflect an universal desire to feel spirit to our fellow human beings when it comes to the wisdom of the heart. In the cooperative world, emotional intelligence is regularly accessed using a 360-degree format for the purpose of a promotion or executive and coaching. In this case, a person's score is based on his or her own self-report in addition to evaluations provided by peers, subordinates, and supervisors. These assessments are mostly concerned with self-control, trustworthiness, conscientiousness, adaptability, teamwork, ability to influence others, and inspirational leadership, all potentially important aspects of being a good leader and manager. The general consensus among researchers is that these tools measure perceived traits, competences, and aspects of one's reputation, but not emotion skill. But the reasons stated above, there is a general agreement. It is a psychological performance test, as opposed to staff report skills are the gold standard because they measure actual capacity for a mental task. There is another reason why defining emotional intelligence is so elusive: the lack of clear terminology. Most of us use words such as emotion and feeling more or less interchangeably, within a general understanding of what they mean. But there are some subtle and important directions too. Let's go through the glossary. An emotion, happy, sad, angry, arises from a pressure of the internal or external stimulus. All of that's true. By appraisal, I mean an interpretation of what is happening in the world or my mind through the lens of my present goals and concerns. All that's true. We hear, see, feel through touch, taste, or smell, something that allows us to a shift in the environment. We are provoked by memory or sensation or an event, something someone says or does, or something we witness or experience. I think about someone who treated me unfairly, or someone actually treats me unfairly, and I feel angry. Emotions are mostly short-lived. Have you ever felt surprised for an hour? They usually include psychological reasons such as blush, chills, or an increased heart rate, and a release of neurochemicals to prepare you for action. They're often expressed automatically in our facial expressions, body language, and other nonverbal cues. Emotions also are occupied by subjective experience in our conscious mind. When we feel happy, we have positive thoughts. Being upset turns us into pessimists. Final emotions mobilize us into action to approach or avoid, flight or flee. The classical view of emotions was that there were evolutionary adaptations and that people across all cultures experienced and displayed the same basic emotions in the same ways. For example, we developed the feeling of fear because it was adventurous to our survival, and we all express it in the same way because it is part of our biological nature. Today, our understanding has become more nuanced. Recent research emphasizes that emotions are fully intertwined not only within our biology, but also with our individual life experiences and culture. We don't all feel the same things, but we don't all express joy in the same way. When school children in the United States are asked to draw a happy face, a sports and hug a smile. When Asian children are given the same task, the smiles are smaller. Does this mean they are less happy than their American counterparts? Only that perhaps they experience and express their happiness differently. As we matter, our emotional repertoire becomes more precise than one hopes. Preschools have one word for angry: mad. All the children in schools where we work alone to make find the distinctions using concepts such as annoyed, aggravated, irritated, livid, and enraged. A feeling is our internal response to an emotion. I'm angry about something that's happening between us. It's caused me to give up hope, and I can't keep going this way. That feeling is nuanced, subtle, multidimensional. When you ask someone how they're feeling, the answer is sometimes they're an emotion, such as happy, sad, afraid, angry. But they may also say they are feeling supported, connected, valued, suspected, and appreciated. These words do not refer to emotions per se, but a motivation in relationship states that the stopped in emotion. Technically, an athlete doesn't feel motivated to learn a marathon. It says it is current and anticipated feelings of joy and pride that motivate him or her to run each day in order to participate in the marathon. We often have more than one emotion at the same time. I'm excited about my new job and I'm anxious about whether I can handle it. I'm angry at how you're treating me, and I feel bitter because I've never treated you so badly. Here's one I know all too well. We can even the emotions about emotions. We call them meta emotions. I could be afraid in public speaking and embarrassed about being afraid. Or I'm being bullied and so I feel victimized. And I feel ashamed of myself for allowing that to happen. A mood is more diffuse and less intense than an emotion or a feeling, but longer lasting. Oh, okay. Mood, longer lasting. Most typically, we don't quite know why we are feeling the way we are during a mood, but we are very certain when feeling an emotion. Moods also can be aftermath of an emotion. Have you ever been annoyed at someone, couldn't stop thinking about it, and ended up in a bad mood? Often it doesn't feel as though anything caused it. It's just a state of being, but one that's completely tied in with our emotional response to life. Mood disorder isn't a common term nowadays describing a psychiatric condition such as depression, bipolarity, and anxiety disorder. These all impair everyday functioning. They're at the extreme of how it affects our lives. In reaching emotions, feelings, and moods, there are emotions related to personality traits. Yeah, that's true. This feels like who we are at our core, our disposition to feel, think, and act in a particular way. We are optimists or pessimists. We are take charge types and fatalists. We are introverts and extroverts. We are calm and hyper. To be sure, personality traits can change over time, but when they do, it happens gradually. This means we need patience with kids who are growing into themselves, but for the most part, traits are the constants, which can have influence over how we feel, but should not be confused with feelings. People who are more optimistic tend to experience greater positive emotions, but they also overestimate other people's positive emotions. On the road of becoming emotion scientists, we need to avoid any temptation to act as emotion judges. In both cases, we are attempting to recognize emotions and their source, and then to foresee how they might be influencing our thoughts and actions. But an emotion scientist seeks to understand whether they make a value judgment or rendering opinions about whether feelings are justified or not, beneficial or not, or reflecting an objective reality. Okay. Haven't really this book for a week straight, but it's still impressive. It is impressive. Okay, stop here.